Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this special broadcast of the Diva and Friends Speaker Series. We're so happy that you've joined us today. I'm Damon King. I'm a certified financial planner professional and wealth manager with ChappelWood Financial Services, the hosts of today's event. This is the financial diva, Victoria Woods. Wave to the camera, wave to your crowd. There you go. All right.
He's not going to let me talk today, just so y'all know.
No. So I got to get all the stuff in. It's a production value. All right. Now, what you can't see is out in front of us, we have a live studio audience. So let them know you're there. Yay! We have a cast of thousands today. We cannot go on any further, though, without recognizing our special sponsor for today, CIBC Private Wealth Management. You're going to hear from one of their senior VPs, Rob Johnson, here in just a moment, but we want to say special thanks to CIBC. They are one of our top high net worth investment strategists here at ChappelWood Financial, working with millionaires and high net worth families. So you're going to hear more about that in a little bit. We have a special guest with us today. We're going to introduce her in just a moment, but this is a ChappelWood event, and you know us, we cannot do anything unless we tell you a little bit about us, okay? So a little bit about who we are. Who are we?
We are ChappelWood Financial Services. We are investment advisors to millionaires. And we have a very, very distinct culture here at ChappelWood. I was on a webinar, and I am the CEO and founder, Victoria Woods, for anyone that has not met me in the past. I can't imagine. But today I was on a Zoom meeting, and we were talking about how different ChappelWood is. And this woman said to me, Victoria, I hear that you retain 100% of your clients. I said, well, yes. And she was just so shocked at that. I was like, and it is very rare in our industry. Until you know the ChappelWood difference, we have a lot of videos that we can share with you if you're a guest of ours. We'd love to do that. And we're very honored that you're here today, because this is a very special event. And I love our Diva and Friends series. We've had people like Charles Payne on.
This is our fifth year.
This is our fifth year to have this. So we've had economists on, we've had celebrities on. It's been a real fun thing for us to do. So we're happy. And as we all know, it has to be fun. I have to make new friends, and we have to learn something. So we're going to do all those things today.
Absolutely. And as Victoria stated, we're advisors to millionaires. We work with clients coast to coast, all over the country, from California to Florida and all over the place. We have a lot of clients in
Spain. I think Spain is sleeping right now. So we promised them our clients in Spain. I just returned. I had to visit them.
It's 10:30 in Madrid, and maybe they're awake. I don't know.
Well, they will get the recording, but yes,
right.
I was with our clients in Spain. So yes, Damon's right. From California to Florida and across the pond.
We also want to recognize the other members of our team here at ChappelWood Financial. So on camera, Lisa Ward is our certified financial planner running our Arlington, Texas office. Say hi to all your fans, Lisa.
You say howdy down here in Texas. Hi, guys.
That's my girl.
Whatever. Okay. Anyway, Lisa's been with the firm now for quite some time, and she's making some great expanding the presence of ChappelWood Financial in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And in no time, we will be dominating the state of Texas. So we can't wait for that. Our focus is also on education like this. I mean, yes, we manage assets. We help our clients build and then preserve their wealth, but we also are about education. We love for you to not know just what is happening, but why is it happening? And that's why we bring on speakers just like Dr. Kelly, which you're going to hear from later today. Now, a few ways to connect with us. We are all over the place. We're omnipresent. We're like Santa Claus. We just pop up and, we dispense gifts all over the world. So you can listen to our radio show. It's all about the money, honey. Now, if you're in the local Oklahoma City area, you can listen to that on News Radio 1000 KTOK at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon or 6 a.m. on Sunday. You can also stream us live on the iHeart app right here on your phone. You can also subscribe to our podcast at on iTunes, everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
Yes, I had a young woman say to me, she texted me and said, if you would reach the younger market, if you would do a podcast. And I just went, well, darling, where would you like that? Because it's everywhere. She was shocked. But yes, it's on Spotify. It's everywhere.
If you can't find us, you're not looking.
Yeah,
Okay.
just Google the Financial Diva and it'll all pop up.
That's right. So you'll find,
Or
and
just
go to
text us over.
ChappelWood.com. Go to our
Yeah.
website. You can click radio show, and all of our most recent episodes are there. You can stream those anytime that you want. You can also register for my weekly webinar. From
The most popular thing.
52 Wednesdays a year, I host a 30-minute webinar called the Wednesday Lunchtime Drive-Through from 12:30 to 1.
One of the most popular things is everyone loves the 30-minute drive-through because it's convenient, it's informative. We get such great response from that. As in the second thing is Rock Your Retirement. That's part of the ChappelWood University, and that is ongoing classes with a workbook, and it's outstanding.
Yep.
I love being able to sponsor these things. So
it's a lot of fun. You can also text the word countdown, which somebody just did. So thank you. I'm not going to share your phone number here on the screen. But you can text countdown, all one word, to 405-348-0909. You will receive a link to download our countdown to retirement. If you're getting close to retirement, you don't just wake up tomorrow and retire. This is a process, and we recommend that you start at least 36 months before you want to retire.
5 years, 7, 10 years.
That's right. Yeah.
Start
early. You don't just wake up and do it. You can, but you don't know if you're going to run out of money or not. You want to answer that question.
Don't recommend that.
And then you can also go to our YouTube channel, which is Financial Diva. You see it there on the screen. You can subscribe. Every time we upload new videos, you'll get notified. We've got playlists there from all of our past episodes of the Lunchtime Drive-Through, as well as all of our other great content. So lots of educational content out there.
I'm going to say LinkedIn. We have videos up constantly on LinkedIn. So we're, as he said, Damon says, the king says we're omnipresent everywhere. We are.
And I should know because I'm the one that puts most of it out.
That's exactly. So when they ask me where we are, I was like, my producer, he says it's everywhere. So just go look.
That's right. That's right. This is our advisory team right here, Lisa, Victoria, and me. And so when you are ready to work with an advisor who is accustomed, and not just accustomed, but skilled at working with high net worth families, that's where we come in. You can give us a call. Take your phone. If you've never used a QR code before, open up your camera, scan the QR code, click the link, and it'll take you to watch a short video about the ChappelWood Millionaire Experience. And when you're ready to sit down and discuss your finances, click the little button down at the bottom of that page, and you'll schedule a 30-minute call to talk with a member of our advisory team.
There you go.
So, all right. We got the whole commercial done in 8 minutes.
Okay, it's quite impressive, actually.
All right. We want to call to the stage now a very special gentleman named Mr. Robert Johnson. He's a senior vice president with CIBC Private Wealth. They are our sponsor for today. So, Rob, come on over and tell all of our family and friends all about CIBC.
Thank you very much, Damon. Thank you, Victoria. Very excited to be here. And as Damon mentioned, I am Rob Johnson from CIBC Private Wealth. So we have offices throughout the country. But as Lisa mentioned, we have, many offices down in Texas where we say, howdy, as well as
or hi, y'all.
Yeah.
Or hey.
So when Victoria and Damon reached out and said, look, we've got a great idea for a client event, I was thrilled and honored. Obviously, as you just heard, the amount of collateral and content that they put out to empower their clients is second to none. So the opportunity for CIBC to take part in a client event and sponsor Dr. Kelly, I wouldn't have said no for a moment. And, let's be honest, Victoria doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to her client's experience anyway. So, but very excited today to hear from Dr. Kelly. And with that, I will turn it back to the king.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rob. And again, a big thank you to CIBC Private Wealth that we have just gotten to know. And actually, I have something interesting to share with you before. So don't leave before I share it with you. I've got to, so you don't have to call me sir. You can call him sir. He's my dad.
You just call him king.
Okay.
Just call him king.
All right.
So with all of that, cheers.
Let's move on to the reason why you're here today. Should we?
Yes.
Shall we?
Shall
Must we? Will we?
Yes.
Okay. So our special guest today is Dr. Mary Kelly. She's written 15 books. She's earned a PhD in economics, and she has spent 25 years leading teams in the Navy, and she is a professional drinker. She drinks coffee in the morning. She drinks protein drinks throughout the day because she doesn't want to stop for lunch. You sound like me, Dr. Kelly. I don't eat lunch. She drinks wine at night on the couch with her two dogs, so at least she doesn't drink alone. That's good. And in case you're wondering, what do you think she looks like, a white or a red girl? What do you think? White or red? What do you think? Red. Yes, she's a red wine kind of lady, but she's not fussy. She'll drink anything. You may have seen her in Money Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, on Yahoo Finance, or on Celine Dion's Vegas stage, where she once took a picture. Now, you're going to have to tell us that story, Dr. Kelly. You realize that now, right? Here to help us understand what drives the economy and the market so that we can make better decisions with our money based on facts and not emotion, please join us in welcoming from Monument, Colorado, Hall of Fame speaker, best-selling author, coffee addict, certified speaking professional, PhD, and Navy commander, Dr. Mary Kelly.
Woo! Oh, that was a great introduction. Thank you so much. And lovely as that is, your audience doesn't care about me at all. What they care about is what I have to give them in the next 55 minutes or so that's going to help them increase their wealth a little bit more. So can y'all hear me okay? Say yes.
Yes.
Can y'all see the screen? Everybody say yes.
Yes.
Everybody looking to make some more money today? Let's all say yes.
Yes.
Let's do it. All right, let's do
Dr.
this.
Kelly, before you continue, real quick, everyone, we will be monitoring questions. We're going to save the Q&A portion towards the end. So go ahead and submit any questions you have using the Q&A chat button in your toolbar. And of course, we're going to have some questions here from the floor later on. So take it away, Dr. Kelly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Folks, we are living in interesting times. And remember, the Chinese use that as a curse. They said, may you live in interesting times, and they meant it as a curse. There's a lot going on, and we are going to get right into it. If you are at all interested, this is my personal flow code. If you are trying to direct people, flow codes used to be a big thing, and then they weren't a big thing anymore. And then thanks to COVID, they're back as being a thing. So if you want, you're going to use your smartphone, your camera on your smartphone a few places today. If you'd like, this might help you get to know me a little bit better. If you're at all interested, you can give that a quick scan. Some of you are still working, you still run your business, you still own your business. You might still be using flow codes and QR codes and blink codes to communicate, to do sales, to keep in touch with people. Some people use this for family reunions. I think QR codes are nifty, wanted to share mine. Let's get into it. This is my 411. I used to run marathons, and then marathons just got a whole lot longer. Some of you all may know what that feels like. I grew up right there in Dallas. I grew up in a family that did not have a whole lot of money. We did not know what wealth looked like. We thought everybody had to be poor. We thought everybody had to live like we did growing up. And then when I got a little bit older and I realized you don't have to, even if you're born poor, you don't have to stay poor. And that was fantastic. And how we get there is with great advice. This is me. The one book that you might find entertaining, none of you need this book. It's called Money Smart. How
Dr.
not to
Kelly,
buy cat food.
Can I
Yes.
stop you for a second? We cannot
Please.
see your slides. So
Oh,
share your
hang on.
slides again for us, please.
Oh, thank you so much for doing that. Okay, hang on. Thank you so much for saying that. And here we go again. And yeah, we practiced this and it all worked. Okay, there we go.
Perfect. Now we can see them.
All right. All right, let's do this. All right. Great. Thank you so much. So back to the flow code for just 1 second. Thank you so much. That's so much better. I appreciate that. If you're interested, and then let's get to the one book that you might find entertaining. I had been teaching personal finance for several years at the university level. And a bunch of my students said, we get what you're telling us, but we need it all in one book. So when I put this together in a book, it's called Money Smart. Like I say, none of you need it. How not to buy cat food if you don't have a cat. Because when I grew up, I used to see people in the grocery stores buying cat food. And folks, there was no cat at home. And I need you to know that that seafood medley does not taste anywhere close to what you think it should taste like. And I resolved, once I figured out how to not be poor, that I was going to start spreading the word about how people don't have to be poor. The other tagline on that book is for 18 to 30-year-olds who want to live well and retire comfortably. Now, you've all taken the right steps to do all that. You have good advisors, you've made a commitment to make your finances a priority, and that is really what it takes. And right now, folks, we're going to do some roller coaster conversations today. At any time, if you've got a question, throw it in the chat, raise a hand, let us know, and I will answer it in the moment. We do have a good hour, and I am thrilled that we had this time. Folks, today, there are crises all around us. There are crises, challenges, and changes. On the geopolitical side, we all thought, okay, coming out of COVID, the world worked together. That was great. And then we should all play nicely. And then that's not what happened. Russia invaded Ukraine, and that created food insecurity for a whole lot of people in both the Ukrainian area as well as in Africa, because Ukraine does grow a lot of agricultural products that go to Africa, and shipping has been impacted, as has airspace, not to mention the fact that it's a war. Then Hamas invaded Israel. Whatever your political leanings on that, I'm an economist, I don't care about that, but what it did do is destabilize the region even more. It took a lit match and threw it on that powder keg that was that area of the Middle East. And here is how you are seeing ramifications of that. The Red Sea has been attacked by the Houthis, backed by Iran, as part of this whole issue. 59 ships a day transit the Red Sea on a daily basis, 21,000 ships a year. That is further degrading supply chains. If those ships cannot transit the Red Sea, what that means is they have to go around the Cape. That adds 2 weeks of transit, and it's far more dangerous, which drives up the cost of just the actual shipping, but also the insurance, as it's so much more dangerous. We in the Navy, we don't even like to go around the Capes. It is dangerous. It's a dangerous passage. China continues to threaten Taiwan. Now, keep in mind, if China does militarily go into Taiwan, that is going to cause a global GDP drop of 10%. So those top three issues, we think, okay, they're far away from us. Do they really impact us? Well, 2 weeks ago, our Congress just signed a bill sending $95 billion into those three areas. So yes, it does impact us. And other geopolitical issues impact us as well. Right now, we do have 207 million people living in refugee camps. Last year, 2 million babies were born as refugees. The oil prices will remain above $90 a gallon in all likelihood through the end of at least this summer, if not this year, simply because of the interruptions in supply chains. And that's just the tip of the iceberg on the geopolitical side. Then we've got the economic side, and we're going to hit on these economic topics today. Right now, the big issue that most people are worried about, if you are building wealth, as you all are, you're worried about tax implications, you're worried about inflation, you're probably worried about the degradation of your assets over time if there are threats to the security of your investments. And that's, again, why you have great financial advisors. And then in the workplace area, we do have all kinds of issues going on. We've got quiet quitting, we've got the great resignation, which is mostly over, but we've got issues in the workplace that are causing people to just give pause and be troubled by what's going on. And then domestically, of course, we still have day-to-day issues that communities deal with. And it's crime, it's the justice system, it's making sure the education system is where it's supposed to be. It's regular supply chain issues. For some folks, immigration's an issue. Our own elections are a destabilizing force. And this year, we're going to see more and more uncertainty in the market as we get closer to elections. When it starts to be September and October, you're going to start to see the roller coaster of the market get a little bit more volatile. I just want to let you know, ride it out. It's going to be okay. If it helps you to not look at the market during that time, that is okay. Just ride it out. You will be fine. And then social capital. Social capital is you and what you do in the community. That is you being a Little League coach. It's going to the PTA. It is serving on the town council. It's being part of your HOA. It is all of those things. But there's a lot going on. So how do we break out what is important, what is going to affect us, and what we need to be really, really smart about. Because right now, as investors, we have to see what could happen, and we have to have a plan. And this is where our advisors are critical for this plan. Our advisors, to me, are the BLT sandwich. Okay, and here's how I look at it. The BLT sandwich. They're the people, we believe them, we like them, and most importantly, we trust them to give us great advice. I have had a financial advisor, as soon as I figured out what one was, I was 21 years old. I had just graduated from the Naval Academy, and I had gone to my new boss, and I said, hey, boss, I think you kind of grew up the way I did, without a whole lot of money, and somehow you're doing well. You've got a nice house, you've got a boat, you seem to have made good financial decisions. How did you do it? And my friends, I have to tell you, he gave me great advice. He said, Mary, I got a financial advisor, and I got a financial early on, and I learned about things like compound interest. And it's not what you make, it's what you save. And it's not just what you save, it's what you invest. And it's being in the market at the right time, which if you miss some critical days, it takes away a whole lot of the profitability. He said, I'm going to set you up with my financial advisor. And his financial advisor, God bless this man, dutifully sat me down for 90 minutes and explained things to 21-year-old Mary about how things that I'd never heard of worked. IRAs, which were still pretty new, mutual funds, which were still pretty new back then, issues that I did not have any experience with, and I will be grateful to that person for forever. So when you find the people in your life who are the BLT sandwich, you hang on to them. And if you have questions, please do not do what I have seen people do since November, and that is to use an online AI service to answer your financial questions. That is the second biggest usage for ChatGPT right now, is asking it financial questions. And I just need you to know, it is not giving good quality answers. Pick up the phone, grab a video chat, get on the computer, text your financial advisor. I know I sound a little bit more like a commercial too, but please do not trust random answers from a computer when you have the ability to ask a real person a question and get a great answer. For chat, let me just tell you how this worked. A friend of mine is a first grade teacher, and she had had a particularly fun weekend, and she was supposed to be teaching her first grade class math, and she was a little behind. And so she went into chat and she said, create a first grade math quiz with 10 questions, multiple choice, that I can give that's appropriate for this grade level. And it did that. And she copied it and printed it out and handed it to her little first graders. And my friend said she was mortified when her little first grader came up and said, but Miss Taylor, I don't think any of these answers are right. And her little first grader was very, very upset, little tears streaming down the first grade face. She had not double checked to see if any of those multiple choice answers were actually correct, and none of them had the right answer. So her poor little first grader was sad. She was mortified. Folks, when you have the ability to ask smart people questions about what's actually going on, please take that opportunity. So how are our investments affected by world events? And what factors do we need to consider for the future? And what am I most worried about? And that's what I would love to find out from you if I'm not covering it, or you just want to throw that out there. What are you most worried about when it comes time to moving forward? So many of you are worried about the people in your life. And if you've got a business, you're looking at my Army example, and it's my ARMED acronym. How do we attract and recruit and retain and mentor and manage and evolve and develop our current and next generation of leaders, but also the people around us? How do we attract and keep the right people? And we know that tools and technology are a huge issue in where things are going. And when we look at market opportunities, we have to look at the future of what's going to happen. Where is the innovation? More importantly, what advancements do we need to be paying attention to? What resources should we be really alert to opportunities? And how do we embrace the future in the right way? A lot of people chase things that they see on the news, or they get advice from their friends. I just want to say something about advice from your friends. When I taught college, I taught at the university level for about 30 years, econ, finance, about 15, 20 different classes. My students would say, well, I heard this. And I would say, great. Where did you hear this from? And they would say, oh, my roommate, my friend. I go, great. Are they wealthy? And they would say, well, no. And I would say, well, then why would you take financial advice from someone who is not wealthy? If somebody is not already doing well, why would you take advice from them? And this is where I see many people chasing the latest, greatest squirrels that they see on TV, or they'll chase an ad and then they don't make necessarily great decisions. And for many of us, we're looking at the world and we're trying to manage uncertainty. When the world is a roller coaster, it's just going up and down, it's all over the place. We have to be the people who manage our own investing uncertainty, as well as maybe our family's uncertainty, our business uncertainty. And then we're looking at growth. If it's business growth, great. If it is financial growth, great. If we're looking for stability and security, that's great. But it all involves strategy. It all involves how do we optimize our resources, making sure we're not missing something, making sure that we're finding opportunities where sometimes some people are not seeing opportunities, and then differentiating the right products and services for us. So what are you and your people worried about? Well, let's start with inflation. Inflation is the rising cost of goods and services. Now, keep in mind, there's also deflation. There are deflationary pressures as well, but mostly right now, we're seeing inflationary pressures. And inflation right now, as of the end of this last month in April, was 3.4%. And that's not great, but it's more of a concern probably to the people around you. And here's what we're going to discuss for a little bit. True or false? Everything seems like it's costing us more money. What would you all say? Let's hear it. I'm going to go with true.
So everybody, what do you hear our studio audience? True or not?
True. True. Beautiful. And you would be right. And how bad is the US cost of living squeeze right now? Well, for the average American family, now remember the average is the middle of the road. Average, they are hurting. And here's why. Because most inflation, you have to remember, only goes back 12 months. And this has been a pretty good past 12 months. But what happened between January of 2020 and October of 2023 is really what people need to be paying attention to. Car insurance has gone up. Major appliances has gone up. Used and new cars have gone up. Restaurant food has gone up. Housing, rents have certainly gone up. And when we look at the past few years, it gives us a much better picture of what's actually been going on. Now, keep in mind, wages have gone up by about 4.1% every year for the past few years. But you multiply that by 3 or 4 if you want to consider 2024, and you're still not talking the numbers that are shown here. So is this really just what's going on, or is it just some fun statistics? Well, right now, we are seeing consumers face financial strains, specifically here. 32% is the average cost of weekly food expenses for a 4-person household just in 3 years. And again, this is where people are mostly hit is food, fuel, and transportation. And this is just weekly food expenses. Okay, so there's ways to cut back on that. Like you, I've done my share of eating macaroni and cheese and peanut butter, and we got by okay. But is it everything? Well, housing's a factor as well. Housing tends to be the biggest expense for most people. And because of that, with rental prices going up and mortgage rates increasing, it's making it more difficult. And you've all hopefully got your mortgage all locked in. That's not a factor for you. But homeowners who do already have that are now facing higher property taxes. And some of you are maybe looking at each other and nodding as you are saying, yes, we definitely have increased property taxes. Now, home ownership in the United States is wonderful at 66.1%. And remember, for most Americans, not people with really good high net income wealth, but for most Americans, for 64% of Americans, the value of their home represents 64% of their wealth. And the homeowners of 66.1% are homeowners in every state except Hawaii, New York, and California, where it hovers between 52 and 55%. It's a substantial part of their wealth building pyramid, and that's great. So for those people who already got their home, they're socked in, they've got a good, nice low mortgage, they're doing fine. And many of those people, maybe they are in that baby boomer or Gen Xer category, and they might be tempted to sell their house, except they can't. The cost for them to move into a smaller property is going to mean an actual higher monthly payment or even an actual mortgage again if they've already paid off their mortgage. So they are not selling their property. And this is driving the inventory of property down. So just some fun math. I don't know how many of you love math. I love math. I think math is awesome. But the average used home in America right now is about $356,000. So let's just say, for easy math purposes, we'll say a $350,000 purchase price. If you put 20% down at $70,000, you've got about a $280,000 mortgage. If you can get a 30-year mortgage right now at 6.5% with good credit, lots of credit unions have that, your monthly payment is about $1,770. If you add utilities, it gets hot in the summer in Oklahoma and Texas. It gets, you want water, you want warmth in the winter, maybe $400 a month. You're looking at a monthly payment of under $2,200. But the average household income is struggling with this because they're off by just a little bit. And it looks like just a little bit when it's on paper, $300 a month. But when people are already struggling to buy the groceries and they've seen increases of the place, that $300 is making home ownership a little bit more difficult. So let's keep going. And here's why. Many people who thought they needed to live to work in Manhattan, New York, they have to live there to work there, now suddenly don't have to live in Manhattan, New York. They can live in Manhattan, Kansas. And this is why we have seen an influx of people to lower priced housing areas. People are smart. Routine bills have also seen rising costs. Electric bills have increased by 25%, natural gas 29%, and the average monthly payment for new cars is over $700. And then childcare costs. If you had a child during COVID, or you had a grandchild during COVID, and maybe they're paying child support or child care, it's about $11,000 a year. And that is about 32% higher than it was in 2019. Healthcare costs have also increased. Healthcare costs have jumped between the employer and the employee up to $24,000 a year. Folks, right now, our GDP, 20% of that is medical costs. It's medical issues, 20% of our GDP. And gasoline prices, which is an easy metric. I laugh because I tell my European friends that we Americans, we love to measure things in terms of gallons. So a gallon of gas right now is today, the average price was $3.61. And we always know how much a gallon of milk is. We know how much a gallon of gas is. And the costs have gone up. But then there's this shrinkflation idea where the size of the package is the same, but they're helping me with my diet by putting less food in the package. And that is shrinkflation. 5 fewer chips per Doritos, less pasta in my Barilla from 454 grams down to 410. They're messing with my Cheerios, a whole ounce less of my Cheerios. Well, okay, none of these are terribly earth-shattering. But when it's systematic, and maybe you've got that family of 4 across the board, it starts to make a difference. And I don't know if you know, but for a lot of Americans, they consider themselves broke. 48.6% of Americans say that they are broke. In January of 2020, 49.1% of Americans said they were living paycheck to paycheck. Now it's up to 66.2% living paycheck to paycheck. Ladies are more likely to consider themselves broke, but it's interesting as to how much we need to have to feel financially secure. The good news is we only need about $17,000 in savings to feel financially secure. And Americans say that they need a salary of about $12,000 more per year to feel secure than what they're making. Folks, the average salary in America is only about $61,600. Now, the average household income is over $75,000, but again, that's combined income for the household. Fast food prices have increased. Food prices have increased. The cost of chicken and beef and supply chains have increased, but also When we pass laws that increase minimum wage, that gets passed on to the consumers who eat at fast food places. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then when you think about very specifically in a 10-year period, the cost of the average meal at Wendy's, Burger King, Jack in the Box, McDonald's, and In-N-Out, the percentage change over that 10-year period looks a little expensive. Is fast food cheap, fast, and easy anymore? Maybe not, maybe not. So then just for comparison, I love that fastfoodmenuprices.com did this. And I like that they also do it in specific areas. They did this in Phoenix, and they looked at, hey, you can go to a Burger King, get a Whopper with cheese, or you can go to Chili's and get the burger combination. So think about this. If you are perhaps on the lower end of the spectrum and income spectrum, and you are maybe struggling to pay those bills, and maybe you're counting on fast food as a meal, this is literally eating into more of your ability to save. And our spending habits are, for some of us, not helping us either. Half of millennials and about 40% of Gen Zers say they let their spending habits get in the way of their life goals. Now, the boomers are better at this. That's great. The millennials are 67% more likely than boomers to eat out or order delivery. They're better at the apps, maybe, but they're 60% more likely to shop online every week. When we talk about whether things are a necessity or a luxury item, I tell people that if it comes delivered to your door, it's probably not a necessity unless it comes from Instacart, and that tends to be groceries. 41% of Gen Zers and 31% millennials say they live beyond their means. And that to me is a problem, because when people are living beyond their means, they are not saving. Now, I would love to ask this to the audience. Who is more likely to make an expensive impulse buy? Is it more likely to be men or women? What do you all say? I will wait.
Men.
Men?
Men.
Okay, so the consensus here is men. What about online? Do we have anybody online? What do you guys think? You can use the Q&A function there. What do you think? Who's more likely to make an expensive impulse buy? I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Kelly. I've never done that before. Okay, so Lynn says men. Anybody else? Steve says men.
You're smart. Look at how smart you all are. This is amazing.
See, we may spend a lot, but we're smart. We know we have a
You
problem.
are smart. You are so smart. And not only that, men will bring home like a car. Ladies almost never do that. You are right. Men are more likely to be big impulse buyers. 8% say they have impulse bought something over $10,000. Ladies don't. Now, ladies, we will spend more on small ticket items, but we don't do the big ticket item like that. That is amazing. Oh, you're such a smart group. Good for you. So when we look at what's the most you've spent in an impulse purchase, I think this is really interesting. The blue is the men, and the dark blue is the ladies. So what a smart group you are. Thank you so much. Good job, y'all. Good job. Okay. And then, have you impulsively bought any of these things? And I think it's funny because I think a lot of people have impulsively bought food at a grocery store. Who hasn't done that? Who hasn't bought clothes or food at a restaurant? So I think these numbers might be a little bit optimistic. The percentage of Americans who buy something every month because a friend recommends it, what? Feel pressured to spend money they don't have, what? Spend a lot to keep up with their peers by generations. The Gen Zers are the light blue, the millennials are the dark blue, and the boomers are the gray. And we totally discounted the Gen Xers. I'm a Gen Xer. I know I've got some Gen Xer friends here. Nobody cares about us, just saying nobody cares. It's okay. Did you know that about 28% of people say they don't even want to check their finances because they're afraid of finding out how much they are spending? 1 in 5 are embarrassed to talk to their partner about their financial habits, about their spending. They will sneak spending with their partner. And I actually think that number is also low. More than a quarter have kept a financial secret from their partner. Many people apparently get married, and then they find out that their partner has debt. About half of Americans cry over spending habits. 1 in 8 people cry at least once a week over their spending habits. And you would think that would cause people to maybe change behaviors, but it doesn't always. So 1 in 6 Americans, 16%, say their spending has ruined their life. And this scares me because we are so lucky to have the resources and the access to information that we have. And when we think about why people do this. Some people do believe that money buys happiness. Now, I'm not saying I don't think money buys you happiness, but I do think if you're super poor, it's hard to be real happy. I think life is just a little bit easier if you're not super poor. And many people overspend, thinking because their finances are going to magically improve and it doesn't matter anyway. And that is poverty mentality. And this is something I study. Some bad spending habit statistics. Many people have regrets about their spending, 71%. 55% say they spend recklessly. 56% of boomers say they might have an overspending problem, compared to 86% of millennials and 87% of Gen Zers. Again, the Xers, we just got thrown in between the boomers and the millennials. Nearly a third say reckless purchases still haunt them. And many people still say if somebody gave them a $10,000 check, 40% wouldn't save any of it. So I know you're all better at all these things. Some people say that they justify unnecessary purchases by saying things like, I deserve it. I used to ask my students, I said, why did you go out to an expensive restaurant over the weekend? And they would say, well, I deserve it. I worked really hard this weekend. No, you didn't. You don't have a job. You're just in school. Why do you think you deserve it? You don't deserve anything. And they would say, well, but I wanted a way to de-stress. I'm like, go for a run. But a lot of people engage in doom spending. I don't know if you've seen that before. It got amped up during COVID, where people will overspend to cope with stress. For some people, spending money, and especially buying online, is a sign of depression. 72% of Americans have or would consider getting a second job. 96% say that they have impulsively spent money. And again, here's just some statistics by generation of who doesn't want to talk to their partner or their spouse because of tensions over money. We all know the number one thing that people argue about as a couple is finances. For fun, just for you all, number 2 is sex. Number 3 is children. And I do not deal with numbers 2 and 3 at all either. But they're embarrassed to talk about their financial habits with their partner. And it was surprising to me how many people don't actually discuss finances at all. So here's, again, the numbers on who gets upset by this. So let's get into how people can solve their spending. For some people, they create a budget, they go out less, they try to monitor their spending, but most of it is pretty ineffective. Because we still want to do this, folks. We still want to do this, even though we should be doing, well, this. And Rob, I know what you're thinking, my friend. You're thinking, Mary, I haven't had that since, 10th grade. I don't know. That's been a long, long time. So we have to be mindful of spending habits so that we have the money to save. And I know you know that. And then the jobs people get do impact their ability to, of course, invest. 77% of employees worry that AI is going to take their jobs. I do not think many people are in as much danger as they think they might be, but many people are worried about this. And again, I wanted to show you this. This came out of Forbes about a month ago. The most common way consumers plan on using AI, answering financial questions, is number 2. I'm like, please, please, please do not do that. Your financial advisors and you are trying to take all of the information that is market forces, which is on the left, and turn it into a streamlined plan, which is on the right, so that you sleep well at night. Nobody sleeps well at night with that jumbled mess on the left. The employment rate in our country is still really low at 3.4%. The reason it is so low is many people have more than one job. Many people who are working remotely, 19% actually, have a second full-time job. And this is why our unemployment rate is so low. Our quit rates have peaked. This means that for people who have voluntarily left jobs, they've kind of stopped doing that. And as of March, that quit rate was down to about 1.2%. So that's good news. People are happier they will say for specific issues at their job, and I'll show this to you, they're not happier, but they're happier overall with the job. Now, our labor force participation rate is too low. We should be looking at closer to 65 to 66%. We are short of people filling jobs right now today at about 6.2 million jobs. And we need more people, especially in that millennial and Gen Z category, to go get jobs. So this is what people say is the pros and cons of their job satisfaction. And job satisfaction has improved again for no real good reason, but people just tend to be, they'd say they're unhappier with all of these factors, but they're staying in their jobs. Their satisfaction has increased. That sometimes is true with the relativity principle, where people can look around and say, okay, I guess things aren't that bad. So wages and salaries, I thought you might be interested in, again, wages and salaries. The median income household in America is only about $75,000, and that's from 2023. And again, that's household, that's combined income in that household. And then when we think about wealth, where is the wealth? And this I thought might be really interesting to you. This came out this morning out of Bloomberg, and they said you can mind map your budget and you can use AI to figure out how you manage your monthly personal budget. And I thought this was an interesting way to kind of taxonomize the basics, the steps, the tools, the tricks, and the challenges. And I thought it was interesting to use AI to create a different way of looking at this. So as we create our wealth, what matters with how we create wealth? Well, the number one factor is still education. It crosses all genders, all races, all jobs. It's by education. It is still the number one leading factor. And I'm not saying that everybody has to go to college. I just had a conversation with my nephew, and I said, kid, I'm not sure you really should be going to college. If you want to go to welding school, I'll pay for it. You want to be an electrician, I'll pay for it. But by education, it is interesting to me that that a college degree still matters in terms of wealth. Let me show you a different perspective as well. Average wealth by education, and this came out at the end of 2023. So this I found to be very interesting, and keep in mind the Bill Gates of the world skew the data for a lot of people, as do many pro athletes, but it's still, education is still a very interesting factor in what wealth looks like. And then I thought you might be interested in what income is needed. Now this is income to be in the top 1% by state. So again, I know a lot of you are in Oklahoma. It only takes about $460,000 a year to be in the top income earner, 1% in your state. In Texas, it's $632,000. Interesting to see that this is top 1% for income. And again, when we look at overall wealth, that's a different camera, that's a different snapshot. So the top 1% of Americans have a net worth of about 2.5 million, while the top 5%, you can be in the top 5% with just a little over $1 million. Very attainable, I hope, for all of you. I hope you've all surpassed that. The top 10% of the population, and that's the overall top 10%, has a net worth of less than $1 million. Now, at the end of 2023, in order to be in the very top, the top 1%, you did need over $5.8 million. And to be in the ultra high net worth, up to $30 million. So if you're going there, I am cheering for you, and I want you to get there. So let's see how your investments have done. As an economist, I like looking over the past and investments to see, and again, that the past is no guarantee of future performance. We all know that. But where a lot of people lost confidence was the market just didn't look like it was doing very much. Because maybe you looked at your portfolio from a couple of years ago and you look at it now and you're thinking, has it done what I want it to do? Well, let me just show you a few things. So the S&P 500 back in 2022, it dropped, and it dropped by about 19.44%, which means you took a hit. And then it bounced back. Now, keep in mind, folks, last year, the market was sluggish. It was lackluster. It was uninteresting. And then what happened in November of last year was Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, NVIDIA, and Amazon all soared because of free AI. It hit in November, and it pushed everybody's stock up, and it made everybody end the year happy. We were all happy to see this. And then this year, it's been kind of a rough first 4 months. And then the past few weeks, the market tipped back up, and the S&P 500 is up 12% so far for the year. The Dow Jones Industrial back in 2022, remember, down by almost 9%. Again, lackluster throughout the entire year, popped back up again in November, almost 13% for the Dow. That's amazing. And then for the year, up by almost 6%. But 2 weeks ago, it was up by like 2%. It's been a lot slower this year. And then when we look at NASDAQ, remember they really had a struggle in 2020, 2022. And then in 2023, again, very lackluster, lots of roller coasters. And then at the end of the year, they tip back up over 43%. So yay team, that's looking good. And then for the year, they're actually lagging behind the S&P 500. So when we look at these numbers, this is where many people get scared. Many people get worried. But over time, it works. It's going to work. I'm optimistic. I'm very bullish on the market right now. And by the way, for those of you who've ever had an economics class, I went through an entire semester of economics and I could not figure out the difference between a bull market and a bear market. Okay, so let me help. A bull market, horns go up. That means the market's going up. A bear market, claws go down. That means the market's going down. All right. So math fun, you have $100, you make 20%, you have $120. Yay, you. But let's say it was 2022 and you have $100 and you lose 20%. Now you're down to $80. Now you make back 20%, you still only have $96. And this is where a lot of people got scared and they made choices and they pulled money out of the market. And what I told people is just ride this out, ride this through. I am still very bullish on the market. I think things are going to be okay. And when people say, well, what metric do you use? Right now, I do use NVIDIA for a lot of things. Again, this came out of Bloomberg this morning, that as NVIDIA, and they reported their earnings this morning, NVIDIA is a pretty good sort of metric for what's happening with the US stock market. So I know a lot of people use different things. I do not pay a whole lot of attention to the inverted yield curve, but I do pay attention to some of our growth stocks. Now, I know I've been talking for a while and some of you are thinking, all right, this is a lot of econ stuff. Is there anything that I can actually use? I'm hoping the answer is yes. So now I'd like to invite you to grab your phones again, grab your phones, and I will invite you to explore my treasure chest of resources. So I get to be an economist, but I also get to talk to businesses about growth and leadership and dealing with people and how we make investment decisions and consumer economics and behavioral economics. And so one of the things I've created is a leader's assessment. And it takes about 2 minutes because many of you are together in a room. I thought you might find it fun. This is part of my vault of materials. For those of you who are still in a business, you might find some of this helpful. I've got white papers. I have workbooks on succession planning. I have my 12-month business success and accountability planner. It is all in there. You don't need a sign in for it. I'm going to direct you right there with this QR code. At the very top of this, I invite you to take the leader's blind spot assessment. Again, it takes about 2 minutes. So if you'd like, go ahead and scan this with your phone. Scroll down to the blue button where it says getting started, and it will tell you one of your 8 superpowers, one of your 8 styles, one of your 8 characteristics. And we named them. So there's 4 main ones. It is CAMP. Are you a competitor, an analyzer, a motivator, or a peacemaker, or some combination thereof? Stabilizers, connectors, energizers, controllers. And that also might give you insights into how you invest. And this is why I like it. Because if you are a natural competitor, then you may not be quite so worried about safety and security, even if you're at a certain age where somebody might be telling you, you might want to be worried about safety and security. If you're an analyzer, you may be that person who needs all the answers to all the questions before you can make a good investment decision and feel good about it. If you are a peacemaker, maybe you're just going to go with what someone recommends to you, but then maybe you wonder, in your head later if you've made the right decision. And if you're a motivator, if somebody gets you excited about an idea, then you're all in. So these might be some helpful things. Is anybody having trouble getting into this?
Is everybody here scanned it? I've scanned it. I'm working on mine right now.
Okay, good. Good.
I'm not sure I want to know the answer at the end.
You totally do. You totally do, because again, the blind spots are great. So I use this, it's superpowers, and then there's, as I do mine, then I go, ooh, ouch, ooh, maybe I do that, maybe I do that. And it's just great for me to know that sometimes I'm perceived by another strength in a way that was not my intention. So I sometimes have to pull back a little bit. I might have to be a little bit more cautious, but I really invite you to do that. And again, while I'm talking, I know it's hard to pick the words as I'm talking, but we've got about 20 more minutes. And I would love it if you would, if you want, and you want to use this later, go ahead and take a picture of this with your camera, or else I'll actually put this in the chat for you. That's probably easier. And you can refer back to this later. And then go ahead and put in the chat what your type is. I would love to know who my competitors, analyzers, motivators, and peacemakers are, and any combination thereof. So let's find out what your superpower is. This is all about you. And so for some of you, let's say you are in a wonderful relationship, and maybe you've been married for 25, 30 years, and you're an analyzer, which means you need answers to all the questions before you can make an investment decision comfortably. And let's say your spouse is a motivator. So let's say you go to a program and you're going to learn about a new investment idea, and your spouse gets very excited about it and says, yes, let's do it. And you're like, hang on, I want to ask all these questions. And then you start asking questions, and they're like, well, why are you asking all these questions? You know, you're kind of taking away the fun of investing in this. And it's because they're analyzers. They ask questions. It's like a pegboard on the garage wall that you put your tools in. They have to fill in all the holes in the pegboard. And the motivators are like, yes, I like this idea. I've seen it on the news. I've wanted to learn more about this. Woohoo, this is the way to do this. And meanwhile, if you're a competitor, you might say, woo, I like this because this is leading the way on the stock market or in this investment or for my future. And then you might want to explore that and get some more information. Whereas if you're a peacemaker, you might say, oh, but honey, you know, maybe we should just keep with what we got. We don't need to do anything differently. And this is where sometimes knowing as couples what we are can be helpful. So I would love it if y'all would just throw this in the chat if you feel comfortable. If you don't, that's okay too. And it's fine. So now I'm going to talk. Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was gonna, well, I know you got some more, so I'm an energizer. That's 50%. So we can go over that later, but I know you've got more to go here. But if you're still working, everybody on that, you can put it in the Q&A. Wendy says, I got stabilizer, 73%. I got energizer,
wow.
50%. So.
Wow, this is awesome. This is awesome. Again, folks, this is all about you. So y'all keep working on that, and I'm going to now depress you a little bit and talk to you about the national debt. So the national debt, they lifted the debt ceiling last year to pass the budget, and we are now, as of this morning, at $34.758 trillion. Now, this comes from usdebtclock.org. So if you ever just wake up and you feel real cheerful, just go right there and it will tell you what the running debt is, a running count, and that will take care of your cheerfulness almost immediately. But this isn't the real problem. If you look at the number that is where it says largest budget items, below the big red block on the upper left-hand side where it says largest budget items, it's Medicare, Medicaid, and then Social Security, and then defense or war, that's all DOD, everything in the Pentagon, Homeland Security, all that stuff. And then interest on the debt. Here's what's scary. That number where it's got a little caution sign, the interest on the debt is going to very quickly overtake everything we are spending for defense. And very quickly, soon after that, in 4 years, it's going to overtake what we're spending on Medicare and Medicaid. And then the problem that I see is down the very bottom where it says, our liability per citizen. Now, I'm going to get back to the national debt block on the upper left-hand side. I'm going to blow that up for you. But where it says liability per citizen for unfunded liabilities, and that's Medicare liability, Social Security liability that's not counted in the other debt. So that for you all is $640,095. But that's not counted when we just consider our current national debt, which is this block right here, that upper left-hand corner block. So let's say you had a COVID baby or a COVID grandbaby, their share, their debt per citizen is $103,220. And yours is about $266,000. Okay, hang on, what? And for debt to GDP ratio back in 2000, we're at 57%, 57.8%. Now we're at 122%. And this is where things start to become bad news. And let's say you had a COVID baby, a COVID grandbaby, and they're about 2-3 years old. By the time they hit first grade, 4 years from today, we fast forwarded. There's a time machine function. Fast forward from today, their debt, and this is every single little baby, you, debt per citizen, $134,048. Debt per taxpayer, that's you, $334,371, because our national debt will be at 46.9%. But then our debt to GDP ratio, if you look at that upper left-hand block, will be at 150%. Our interest on the debt, that line underneath that, will be almost twice what we're spending for all of our defense, Homeland Security, way more than Medicare, Medicaid, way more than Social Security. Our unfunded liability climbs up to almost $860,000 per citizen on top of that. And it starts to look real unsustainable. And this is what worries me. Now, let's ask, are the states doing any better? So in Texas right now, every state right now is running a deficit. And this is what our GDP is. This is what our running debt is. So again, the debt is kind of what we budgeted for the year, which is why it looks bad. Our debt per citizen, though, is about $13,328. Our food stamp recipients, we're doing okay, not great there. It should be closer to about 10% of our population. And we have a pretty low unemployment rate in Texas. Oklahoma, all right, there's a negative unemployment rate in Oklahoma right now, according to the statistics, and that's more people have second jobs than we, so you get the idea. That's why I've got a negative number. There's a lot of people with second jobs. Food stamp recipients, again, a little bit high. It should only be about 10%. Debt per citizen, though, is only about $4,900, so that's pretty good. Just for comparison purposes, California has a lot more population, lots more people on food stamps, a lot more debt per citizen, and a much higher debt to GDP ratio. So this is, again, we pay attention to the debts and the spending. There's that national debt blown up for you with that debt to GDP ratio at 150%. See, this is where things start to get depressing when you're me. Sorry about that. So our GDP, how's it doing overall? Overall, we're at about $28 trillion for the year. This is projected for the year, so this is good. This is good. And while I'm talking, feel free to go ahead and put your leader's superpower in the chat, and we will chat about that in about 13 minutes. Taxes. Taxes are going up, and they are going up for people with wealth. Total federal, state, local effective tax rates in 2024 for the top income earners. It's broken out by the top 1%, and then the top 4%. It's not the top 1%. So top 5%. It's not the top 1%. You get the idea. So it's the lowest quintile, second, middle, fourth, next, and then I thought you just might find this interesting. And this came out just in April, showing where effective tax rates are, because this is a concern. How do we protect our investments and be good tax-paying citizens, but also make sure we're not being silly? And then taxes as a percentage of income, again, broken out the same way from the top, the lowest 20% up to the top 1% as those quintiles. So I thought it was interesting that the lowest 20% as a percentage of all federal and state and local taxes. So it's property taxes, that's everything combined in there. I thought you might just find that interesting. And tax strategies, I think, are a huge part of retaining wealth and moving forward. So monetary policy, this is the Federal Reserve, those crazy folks. This is, of course, Jerome Powell and his team. And this is what determines federal funds rates and discount rates and the interest rates that most of us are familiar with when they say the federal funds rate and the discount rate. This then travels down toward us, snowballs down to us as the costs of borrowing money for mortgages, homes, businesses, and all that. You're familiar with all that. So it's it literally is rolling the dice right now. It's not going to probably change until the fall. And I do think there will be a drop simply because of elections. And I know they're not supposed to be political, but I do think we're going to see a little bit of a drop there. Consumer confidence. Consumers are smarter than people give them credit for. People will make good buying decisions sometimes, especially if they see a trend that worries them. So remember, back in the summer of 2022, the government said we're really, 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 really not in a recession. We had two negative quarters of GDP growth, but we're not going to call it a recession because we don't want to call it a recession. Consumers were not fooled. They're like, hang on, inflation is at the highest it's ever been at 9%. People were really hurting. They stopped spending. They felt badly about spending, and consumer sentiment, according to the University of Michigan, was down. It has tipped up in the past 20 months or so. So people are feeling a little bit more optimistic. Credit card fund. I thought you might find this interesting as a metric. Which demographic group has the most credit card debt? I would love it if you could just shout out who you think.
C. We got C, Gen X. Anybody else? C. B, millennials.
Yeah, I think it'd be.
So we're going millennials or Gen X. Most people seem to say B, I guess.
You're so smart. This is a smart group of people. So for a while, it was actually the over 75 crowd who had the highest amount of credit card debt for about a year and a half. And it was because they're living on fixed income and they hadn't quite adjusted their spending. But now you're so smart. It's the Gen Xers. These Gen Xers, this is what they're doing. This is how they're spending. You're going to look at the first column, the kind of purple-blue column for third quarter of 2023, and it compares it to the year before that and the year before that, and where the spending was as a generation. And look at those Gen Xers, look at them spending. And it's what they're keeping as credit card debt. And I find this interesting because it means, of course, that they are not investing the way they should, especially during that age time. Here's what's scary to me. Nearly a quarter of American households have zero emergency savings, like nothing at all. Some savings for another 28%, but not enough to cover 3 months of expenses. That to me is super scary because one member of the household loses their job for a couple months and all of a sudden they are going to credit cards. And this worries me a lot. Here's what's also interesting. And I by the way, if you have not all downloaded the Countdown to Retirement with Damon, really do that. It walks you through 36 months, 24 months, 12 months. People need a plan to retire, and many people accidentally retire. And this is what I want to hit on. 1 in 5 Americans say they may never retire simply because they don't think they have the money to retire. And this worries me because the average person who retired in 1991, I'll just tell you, 57 years old, a lot younger than people think. The average person who retired in 2022, a lot younger than you think, 61 years old. And mostly they retired 5 to 6 years sooner than they thought they were going to because of their own health, the health of a spouse, or something going on with another family member where they had to. And what this means is they lost out on 3 to 5 to 7 years of earnings, 3 to 5 to 7 years of being covered for medical costs and medical insurance, and this caused issues. So please take a look at that Countdown to Retirement. Our American lifespan has declined in the past few years. Yes, COVID played a part in that, but we've dropped overall from 78.8 years to 76.1 years. So we need to get into the retirement. And then when we think about this, the American men, okay, this is the average. Now, the reason this looks bad, and I just spoke to actuarials earlier this week, the reason this looks bad is not because, oh gosh, I'm 68, I need to have some fun now. It is because more young men are dying earlier. And that is mostly, I'll show you, it's heart disease, it's cancer, but it's also unintended death. Let me show you that. For the ladies, we are down again by just about a year. This comes from Stat News. We are still outliving the men. If I was in front of you, I would be able to say, and I would be joking with you, gentlemen, why do you die before us? And you would jokingly tell me because you want to, or something like that. We would have some fun with that. Oh no, I didn't put that in here. So what's killing the men is heart disease, cancer, and unintended death. That is the, hey, y'all, hold my beer. Hey, y'all, watch this, or opioids. There's that. For ladies, number 1 death for us, we're same as the men, heart disease and cancer. But our number 3 is split between respiratory diseases and strokes. So, and again, the reason, if you're a man and you live to be 65, and I may have thrown that in here, you're in good shape. You're going to live another 17 years. Let me see if I threw that in there. Nope, I didn't. You're going to live another 17 years. Ladies, if you get to be 65, you're probably going to live another 19 years. So I just want to say, don't like hit a certain age and think, okay, I've got to take all the money out of my investments now and spend it before I die. I do think you should do that. I want you to have a really great time with your investments because darn it, you earned it. And that's why we do that. But if you look at the actuarial tables, it can be a little misleading. So I just want to give you a few nuggets as I walk into some volatility and uncertainty. Rates aren't going to be cut until fall of 2024. As I said, mortgage rates will drop. And if you've got great credit, you can negotiate something. Also, if you've got a great relationship with your financial institution and your local bank, you can do pretty well. Unemployment is going to increase. Unemployment is going to increase, and here's why. More businesses are mandating that their people come back to work. And what that means is those people who have that second full-time remote job can't do that anymore because they're now back at work and they can't be on a Zoom call with their other employer. So folks, we are going to be in a place of volatility. I was in the Navy a long time, and about 25 years. And when you are landing planes on a carrier deck, you have to be very, very focused and very much in the moment. When you are trying to figure out your vision for the future, you have to do the same thing. So when you think about where you're going, you have to think, okay, what am I doing in the future? And what major changes do I see in the future? And how do these changes affect my investment purposes? And what legacy do I want to leave? And if there were no constraints, what would we do? And that is a way to craft the vision. I have a bunch of these 5-minute plans in the vault of materials that I shared with you with that QR code. I'm going to go back to it. And if you are trying to lead other people into good investments, your family members, your kids, remember, folks, you got to give them information, and more than once. I was my parents' kid for a long time, and I know they never thought I listened. And I need to know I really did listen. So don't be afraid to give people reminders and advice. This is on the back of my dog's shampoo bottle, and it says, remember to eliminate all escape routes well in advance. A tip, once your pet is slippery wet, he or she is suddenly faster and smarter than you are. We need reminders to make good decisions. And when I was out to sea for long periods of time, it would be a volatile situation. And you have to be looking at a lot of things all at once, because remember, folks, ships at sea don't just stop because it's Friday afternoon at happy hour. We're still, thousands of miles in the middle of the ocean. We still got a job to do. We still got things to do. So just because the world around us seems really chaotic doesn't mean we stop. It means we pick a direction and we go in that direction. If we have to change directions, then we do that. And when we're launching planes off a carrier deck, I just want to share with y'all that we don't dress people like Skittles because we think, wow, that would be whimsical fun. No, we do it so that we know from the bridge if we've got the right people in the right place at the right time. Do I have the right plane movers, the right ordnance people, the right maintainers? Do I have the air boss where air boss needs to be? Having the right people in your life when you make good decisions is critical. And keep in mind, folks, in the Navy, we get up close and personal to jet engines, and it can be dangerous. It's dangerous work. And the average age on board one of my aircraft carriers, and I still consider them all mine, is 19 and a half years old. 19 and a half years old. So yes, the world looks like it's a volatile place, and it is, but we are the ones who manage that volatility. And a couple of weeks ago, I got to go talk to some firefighters. And I said, why in the world do you all take risky actions? Why do you go into burning buildings when for the rest of us, we run out of the burning buildings? We say, you know what, that's a dangerous place. And they say because they've got the right gear, they've got the right leadership, and they've had the right training. And this to me is exactly about investing. If you've got the right gear and you know the right stuff and you've got the right leadership, you're going to be okay. So here's that QR code again, in case anybody needs it. I'm going to flash it, and then I'm going to conclude with just one more thing and stop at 4:45. So we've got some time for questions if you've got questions. In your vault, you've also got my predictions for 2024. I come out with these every November, 23 for 2023, 24 for 2024. You get the idea. I talk about geopolitical issues, global issues, and how they impact local issues, how technology is accelerating the pace of change, how business trends are focusing on profits protection, mostly cyber protection, but also physical, and philanthropy. the labor force participation rate, and customers want more and they want it now. And so every year I come out with predictions in specific areas. And very quickly, I just want to introduce you to my siblings. I was so fortunate to spend 25 years on active duty in the Navy. My sister's on the far right-hand side. She was the Air Force officer in the family. She did over 20 years. Her husband was Navy. My older brother is between us. He flew Marine helicopters for about 26 years. His wife is Navy. My first husband was a Marine. I lost him to cancer in 2006. Number two was Navy, and I lost him to pancreatic cancer in 2022. And I know what you're thinking. Oh gosh, she's kind of bad luck with that cancer. I know what you're thinking. That's okay. But you know, we think we've got life mapped out, and then life throws us curveballs. So we have to be prepared. And being prepared means making good decisions. And then my younger brother's on the left-hand side. He's a Navy pilot in the family, and his wife's a school teacher. And what she taught me is such a critical lesson, because as a school teacher, she taught me that we have to communicate with other people. And for her, it's her students, in a way that works for them, not in a way that works for us. So that's why I'm hoping you are able to use that Leader's Blind Spot assessment, communicate what you want with your spouse, your partner, your investment advisor, and make really, really great decisions for the future.